Welcome everyone, Christine here on Serious Gaming with the discussion on the subject of Total War Warhammer Regional Occupation, which Creative Assembly has detailed in a blog post on their site after certain rumors came to light or certain discussion was started on the subject of regional occupation in Total War Warhammer. Basically, you will not be able to control every single settlement on the map. This is not necessarily a bad thing, just to put that out there right now. I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing, but I feel that what they're doing here is a very shallow and simplistic solution to a much larger problem. They've given lore arguments as to why it wouldn't make sense in a Total War Warhammer game, and they've kind of got the point, with the exception that, sure, as vampires you can occupy human settlements because vampires mostly rule over humans. That's how things go in Sylvania. And the Empire can occupy human settlements, not Chaos ones though, not the Chaos Raider settlements. The Raiders from Norska will not occupy Empire settlements, they'll pillage and burn them to the ground. That's how things go. That makes sense. What doesn't make sense, what makes far less sense, is say for instance the dwarves occupying a greenskin settlement and then having immediately a population there and being able to train troops and all that. That doesn't make sense on a lore level. Doesn't make sense either that the greenskins would just be able to occupy a dwarven settlement either. I mean, sure, these things have happened, but the population is not just the dwarves. Sure, you might use some of them for slave labor, those that you don't kill, but it just doesn't work all that well. There should be a mechanic that you should have a mechanic whereby you transfer population, where you convert the population instead of just immediately taking over a settlement and being able to do whatever you wanted in that settlement. Obviously, for convenience sake, they decided to not go with it, but their lore argument is kind of a load of bullshit to a certain degree. I mean, it does make sense, for instance, the idea of, the vampires occupying greenskin territory, that doesn't make sense. But why wouldn't the vampires or the Empire be able to occupy dwarven cities? Just a reason. Like, are the dwarves so different? Obviously, there should be restrictions if you were to do that in terms of troops, and it should be a population conversion. But the way they did it's like, oh yeah, you can't conquer certain cities of certain races for lore reasons, and it's just a load of bullshit, and it's a simplistic solution to a larger problem there. And on a gameplay level, their argument is that they want to move away from the problems that Total War has on a campaign level, the repetitiveness of the campaign, like players are moving slowly, expanding slowly around their core territories, and then the end game being an auto-resolve fest, or where every battle is just basically an auto-resolve. And that's really been the case of Total War for a very long fucking time, and they're trying to solve that. The problem? This does not solve anything. Just because you can't occupy certain settlements doesn't mean you will not have unstoppable armies in the end game. In a lot of auto-resolve battles, that won't happen. In point of fact, what will likely happen is that if you don't occupy a settlement, you can raze it to the ground. The razing mechanic that was introduced in Attila is present here in Total War Warhammer. And they talked about, you will have a choice between pillaging a settlement or razing it to the ground. How about pillaging a settlement and immediately after razing it to the ground? Because that's what you could do in Attila, for instance. Even if they put a one-turn limit on that, or a couple of turns limit, that's probably what you're gonna do. You're gonna pillage the settlement to get the money, and then you're gonna raze it to the ground. As someone who plays Total War on legendary difficulty, the risk of letting an enemy settlement or a faction that's hostile to you nearby means that the risk of having them build a stack of troops and marching on your territories in the least opportune moment means that you won't bother. And Creative Assembly, in their own fucking blog post, I might add, showed a screenshot with most of Kislev and the Empire destroyed, like annihilated, all their settlements destroyed. And that's kind of, besides the territories occupied by the vampire counts, but most of it's Starland, Reichland, Talbekland, Ostermark, wiped out completely. No cities there. Kislev, completely annihilated. And that's the bigger problem with this fucking system. Beyond the fact that it will not solve, as far as I'm concerned, the bigger problem of the game falling into a very repetitive pattern in the end game with a lot of auto-resolved battles, which they claim they're trying to fix, and making the campaign more dynamic, which they will absolutely fucking fail at. On top of that, the bigger problem is that you're just gonna end up with the vast majority of the map being destroyed with a lot of raised settlements in the map. Now, sure, you might say, greenskins or Chaos, that's what they do, right? And not quite. Chaos is more interested in raiding more than anything else. Very rarely is Chaos interested in complete annihilation. Though this is one of the periods with Archeon where they're interested in destroying the fucking world. But even in End Times, they occupied Middenheim. They didn't destroy Middenheim. Just to make a point, they didn't destroy that entire city, raze it to the ground. And it's very rare, both on a historical level and in the Warhammer universe, for cities to be completely razed to the ground. Case in point, when Prague, the city of Prague of Kislev, was occupied by Chaos, it wasn't destroyed. It was infested by Chaos, and it was very difficult to cleanse it, but it wasn't a completely destroyed city. Now, sure, you might say, oh, you can rebuild the city, but that's so fucking expensive, so prohibitively expensive, that just doesn't work. The sheer effort of completely annihilating a city, killing everyone in the population, is staggering. That's why it never happened. That's why it never really happened all that much in history. Even with the Mongols and Huns, it wasn't really anything but a rare occurrence. It's just that the Mongols, for instance, used that fear factor to get a lot of other cities to surrender. Sure, the Mongols razed a good number of cities to the ground, but they also captured the far greater number of cities because they surrendered due to the fact they knew they would not be spared if they resisted. So that's what happened there. This doesn't make sense on a lore level, nor will it solve the gameplay problems. It's good to an extent that they recognize that they do have a problem in terms of the campaign map gameplay, and it's good that they're trying to fix it, but they're trying to fix it with in a very dumb way, and it's just not gonna work out. All I have to do is point at that fucking map they linked themselves, tell you that's not gonna work. You're gonna have the same damn problem as in Total War Attila, where most of the AI settlements are gonna be destroyed by other AI factions. So there you have it, a stupid solution to a much bigger problem. Kwasin here on Serious Gaming, signing out.